Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, I'm tired of that music. Good afternoon. Welcome to Desperate House Witches. I'm Raina Star, so you don't have to be. Desperate House Witches is not a PG, or even an R-rated show. So if bad talk, bodily functions, dirty things of any kind might offend you, this is not the show for you. Well, we know this is why you tune in. There's no other reason. It's because I'm a foul-mouthed old lady. Desperate House Witches is brought to you by the incredibly wicked one herself, the amazing Dorothy Morrison. Please check out www.dorothymorrison.com for all things Dorothy Morrison. Tell her I sent you. And if you're looking for her Wicked Witch Mojo product, please visit your local retailer and tell them you want Dorothy Morrison's Wicked Witch Mojo product. Tell them your Auntie Raina sent you. So how do you like that? As a reminder, coming up at the end of the month, we're doing it. It is time once again for the Mystic South Conference. I am so excited. We will be there in Atlanta, Georgia from 26th through the 28th. So that's the 26th, 27th, 28th, Friday through Sunday in July. And we will be at our favorite place, the Crown Plaza, Atlanta, at Ravinia in Georgia, in Atlanta. Be there. Come see me. Give me a hug. Tell me how you are. Come visit. We're going to do the show live the day before the event, and the first night of the event, I will be there having all the guests on. So come and see us. It's going to be a great event. St. Elias is going to be there. Morgan Daimler is going to be there. And Wendy Mata is going to be there. And, you know, I'm loving all these folks. So we're going to have a great time. Please come see us at the Mystic South Conference. It's going to be a great time. All right. With me for the hour. I'm so excited to have this lady on. Finally. I have with me today for the hour author of, amongst many other books I might add, the Modern Witchcraft book of Crystal Magic, Your Complete Guide to the Power of Crystals, the lovely Judy Ann Nock. Hello, my friend. Welcome on, finally.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm so glad. So, Judy Ann, it's your first time on. Welcome.
Thank you.
Unlike regular interview shows, I don't do interviews. So, tell me all the things. You've written, 7 other books. You've been around the block a couple of times, my girl. How'd you get into this witchcraft business in the first place?
Oh, my gosh. My origin story. I would have to say that I probably got into witchcraft as a direct result from being raised Catholic in a household that was religiously mixed. So my father is a devout and practicing Catholic. My mother is culturally Jewish, but I think her worldview kind of skews more towards agnostic. So those two kind of opposing worldviews definitely framed my understanding of spirituality. So there were things that I really loved about Judaism, particularly the matrilineal focus. And there were things that I really loved about Catholicism, which was the ritual, the smoke clearing, all the chanting and stuff that we would do. And so I think that I came to this path very, very honestly. I was low-key obsessed with the Blessed Mother as a child. I felt that I was kind of an intuitive and I don't know, it just kind of made sense to me, the veneration of the female deity was definitely something that is original to my spirit.
Like it. So how early do you think you veered off from both paths? I mean, because the two paths, as radically opposed as they may seem, Judaism and Catholicism, really witchcraft kind of bridges it, even though it seems so diametrically opposed. When around what age do you feel like you kind of went sort of in the middle of that with witchcraft?
I think it had a lot to do with meeting a catalyst person in my life. So this was a friend of mine in high school who said to me one day, she said, I have found religion. I said, ooh, that sounds exciting. Let's talk about that. And she said, I've discovered Wicca. And I thought, oh, that's such a funny word. Tell me more about that. And it seemed to just really click with me. From the time I was about 8 years old, I had a complete obsession with Greek mythology. And I think when other girls my age, wanted to emulate, starlets and, was reading 17 magazine, I was reading classics because that's where my interest lies. No one gave them to me. I sought them out. So then to discover that there was a modern practice that incorporated mythology, something that I already knew a lot about. I had been pretending to be Athena since I was a little kid. So I knew all of her symbols, I knew all of her stories. And so to have that reinterpreted, I also was very, very connected to the natural world. I loved primitive camping. So to have a spiritual practice that was not confined to a building, that not only included but elevated the divine feminine, that incorporated a lot of the things that I had been doing intuitively anyway. I had built my first altar before I even knew what an altar was. Somehow I knew that a picture of the moon needed candles and little open perfume bottles because I was too little to know what incense was. So it's a little cliche, but to me it very, very much felt like coming home. And I would say that was in my late teens. And I pursued it like I pursue everything. I just consumed it.
Wow. That, the things that feel right, they just envelop us, even if we don't realize what it is we're doing. I've got so many instances of that I can relate to. So that's just phenomenal. And I know it sounds cliched, but it really isn't, because when it clicks inside you and feels right, that's the most intuitive thing about magic, because it just all feels exactly right and it all falls into place and you don't have to question it. And it's just that innate feeling of this is what I'm supposed to be doing and this is what it's supposed to feel like. And I've got to tell you, and before I started gathering books and stuff and all of that, I've never had more feelings like that than before I started reading about, what I was supposed to be doing, and before I got a mentor, and before all the things came in, I had more instances of those feelings in the beginning than I have since. Isn't that weird? I think too much knowledge can really get in the way of the emotion of it. What do you think of that?
I would agree, because I've definitely encountered people that have gotten all of their magical learning and experience through books. And as an author, I have no problem with people seeking out information from books. But I did not come from a book learning practice. I came from an experience practice, and I was very, very lucky to have had spiritual mothers who trained me right in magical art. So I was very blessed by them. So when there was book learning, when I came of age in witchcraft, it was really up to two segments of society. One was feminism and one was LGBTQ, because our local lesbian-owned bookstore was the only place for that short little shelf on Wicca and witchcraft. Now it's a huge shelf and a whole section, and I'm very, very lucky to be on that shelf. But I absolutely remember when it was a short shelf in like one particular bookstore, and that information was very, very hard to find.
I'm from New York. Where was your bookshelf?
Okay, so I grew up kind of in the dirty South. I am from the Panhandle of Florida. I spent most of my formative years in Pensacola, and then for my bachelor's degree, I went to Tallahassee. So it was in the Bible Belt, and that's why I give like so much credit to the LGBTQ community and to feminist bookstores, because that was really the only place to find information on Wicca, witchcraft, or any kind of occult practices.
Right. Well, and even for me, you know, as a kid living in progressive New York, the only place that I was aware of when I was coming up, now you have to remember I'm going to be 60 years old, the first place I had real access to was a place called Enchantments in the city, and of course, run by gay witches, lesbian witches, my peoples. Hello. I'm a bisexual. I'm out. People know that. Never had. It's interesting because as a bisexual, it's very hard to get acceptance by any team because a lot of people don't think it's a real thing, which, you know, we're always fighting for acceptance, and that's fine. But it's easier for me to tell people I'm bi than it is for me to tell people I'm a witch, because now I live in, you know, the South. I live in North Carolina, and it's like they're fine with me being bi. It's the witchcraft they're kind of like, huh? So
interesting.
Talk about not being easy either way. And I'm at an age where it's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, but I got bills and shit like everybody else. Listen, you know what? Christian mythology, my mythology, your mythology is mythology. Everybody's entitled to their mythology. I don't want to burn anybody at the stake for any particular reason. I think everybody should be entitled to whatever the fuck they want to believe. And you do your thing, I'll do my thing. I have no problem with the Christian God. It's some of the more radical followers that want to chop my fucking head off. You know, I'm just like live and let live, but whatever. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you said the community, I was like, oh, maybe she knows enchantment. So I thought, I figured maybe being in New York, you had that same
when
experience.
I moved to New York, my first apartment was on the same block as Enchantment. So I know it very well. In fact, in my first book that I published back in 2005, I included a little resource of like where to find, you know, like magical tools, objects, ingredients, and I had listed that store as a resource. And yes, I'm very familiar with it. I had friends that worked there, and it was on my blog, so it was my go-to for years.
Very cool, very cool. So I guess you're also, or you may have been, well, I don't know, this is probably after your time, but were you at all familiar with Magickal Child?
Yes, I actually do remember Magickal Child. I had been in there, once or twice. I did buy a few things in there. The legend of Herman Slater only grew and grew and grew, and I learned way more about him, I think, after he passed than I did when he was in life. I never met the man, but I absolutely remember Magickal Child for sure.
Oh, yeah, he chased me out of the store when I was a kid. Because he was, like... Yeah, I mean, I did. But then he let me back in. It was fine. He was just messing with me. No big deal. But, yeah, I mean, the stories about him are, in fact, legendary. Woo! New York in the 70s and 80s.
That's one way to describe them, yes.
Yeah, I know. Very, very, I mean, even my mentor who, I lived with, he and his wife in Deer Park, in the Appalachians, and even he had stories about Herman Slater. I mean, truly.
Oh wow!
I won't repeat the name he gave him. It was not a nice name, obviously. But
I know why.
Of course. So yeah, but oh my goodness, yeah, it's just wow, so much in common. So all right, so tell me more about your evolution. So you came to it around high schoolish time.
Yeah.
Is this something you feel comfortable sharing? Did you feel comfortable sharing this with your family, or is this something you kept hidden?
Oh, I absolutely kept it hidden, just because of, I think, where I was geographically. Definitely did not feel that was going to be like a welcome conversation. So I would say that it was really publishing that pulled me out of the broom closet, because I made the decision to publish under my birth name. So I could have chosen a nom de plume, or used a magical sounding name, but I decided not to, and that was a conscious choice. That a lot of different factors kind of weighed into that decision. One of the lesser things that it did stay with me was that I matriculated through an occult society where I did my initiation and my ordination, and there were people in that group where I never knew their real names. I only knew them by the names that they showed me, and that's fine. Everyone is entitled to privacy, and I respect that, and I understand the reasons why people might not be comfortable putting themselves out there under their given name. I was not comfortable putting myself out there under my given name, but I did it anyway, and it did sort of force the hand, and I did eventually get that acceptance, but it was not automatic. The acceptance didn't come first. The acceptance came much later. So I do understand how, if you're not going to be a best-selling author, it might be even harder to get that acceptance. So I think that definitely helps. Yeah, it definitely helps. Was that a painful experience to go through when that knowledge became public? Of course. Okay. Anytime you are questioned or rejected or feel that you have to hide or that you have somehow displeased the people that are supposed to, love you unconditionally, it's very, very hard, which is why I respect everyone's decision. The goddess is known by 10,000 names. If anyone wants to be known by some other name, I trust that they have their reasons for doing so. And I know that my decision did not come easy. It was not easy to stand behind. And it is what it is. I made a choice, and I'm very lucky that I had the privilege of having a choice. No one's burned me yet. Right on. So how long did it take for that acceptance to finally come? Let's see. I guess, I can't really speak for other people, so I don't know when and if for you. They accepted me. But I do say that it's an ongoing process. It was never like a moment where we all sat down and said, we're okay with you. I just kept stepping more and more into my own power. And it's not that I didn't care what people thought of me. It's just that I had made myself so small for so long for the comfort of others that it became exhausting. And I just decided that as a human, I really couldn't afford to do that anymore, so I stopped. That's hard to do. Wow. Yeah. I got to tell you, as a person who used to do that, well into my 40s, I still did that.
And, you know, when I talk to people and I'm like, you wouldn't imagine that I was not only a doormat, but, I mean, literally afraid to speak up for myself until I was 45. People are just like, are you kidding? That couldn't be you. And I'm like, yeah, it actually was. And you know, an incident happened to me, and it changed me almost overnight. And
I believe you.
You know, you have that aha moment. Did you have an aha moment, or was it a thing that you actively had to work on?
Oh, it was more that the relationship I was in had forced the hand.
Ooh.
I was married at the time I published my first book, and my husband really had an aversion to witchcraft, even though he knew that I was practicing when we met. He had this aversion to it, and he had this hope that I was going to give it up at some point. And that did not occur. So when I had the opportunity to publish my first book, he actually forbade it, and I went ahead and did it anyway. It caused a huge rift in our relationship, and I had done like the traditional thing, and I had taken his name when I married him, and he refused me the right to use our family name. So that was why I started publishing under my birth name. I had already felt, you know, like shy and not totally accepted by my family, and then to be like rejected by my husband as well was kind of like a double blow. It felt like there was kind of like nowhere to turn, and so I was kind of forced into it, but I just stepped into it, and I was like, well, I have a right to my voice, and I have a right to call myself. And so it's funny, when we first got to talking, you asked me if I preferred Judy or Judy Ann, and it's like the name is such a charged subject for me. I'm like, I don't really care. You know, I'm just happy to be here and happy to be called by any name, because I've changed my name, been told I can't use that name, gone back again, and it's all very, very highly charged.
Yeah, because whenever I ask people, do you have a preferred name? I mean, normally they do have a preferred name, and you're like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm like, wow, okay. I bet there's a story there, and there is. Wow, okay, I get it, though. I do get it. You know, whenever I do something, I mean, I've been married 3 times, and my father was a genuine asshole, and my first husband was a genuine asshole, and my second husband was a genuine asshole. I mean, everyone up until my current husband was pretty much a genuine fucking asshole.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, it's all part of a lesson, whatever it's supposed to be. But you know, the fact that because a lot of us don't get to come out the other side of it. A lot of women don't survive it, or, you know, for whatever reason, life can be very unkind. And so when I find, you know, a fellow sister who has come out of it and has come out on the other side, it's kind of like, yes, we made it. So, you know, I respect everyone to make their decisions for whatever reason they have to, just like you do. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the pronoun thing. I respect your name, I respect your pronouns. You know, you get to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And should get to be
I firmly believe people should have the power to call themselves in a manner that resonates with their spirit. No question.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny because people are like, well, you know, we've got to learn all this new speech. And I'm like, let me tell you something. When I was a little girl, you know, because they're like, well, you know, should we be letting children change their gender? And I was like, when I was a little girl, I thought I was a lioness. Calm down. Let the child be a fucking child. You know, everything doesn't have to be so fucking serious. I just wish people would relax. You know, you don't always have to take things to their imagined conclusion when the child is 7. Just calm down. Let people express themselves. Everything doesn't have to be a fucking hysterical thing. Just relax. You know?
Well, I do think it's interesting because I will say that, you know, my initial understanding of, you know, witchcraft was highly polarized. Like, we worship a goddess and a god, and the goddess is elevated, and I felt like because of the way and because of the time that I came up in the world, I really needed that elevation of the feminine aspect because it addressed an imbalance in my life. And now that I see, like, younger people, like, rebelling against the whole construct of gender, it makes a lot of sense because if we're talking about, you know, like a deity, that is going to transcend our incarnation. It's going to be something beyond our understanding. Like, we interpret these energy signatures in a way that makes sense to us. So while I appreciate what you're saying, yes, you know, children should be allowed to explore their identity without it being taken to some finality because, you know, maybe it's supposed to be fluid. Maybe all of this polarity is not enduring, right? Maybe that is like a construct that needs to be examined or looked at. So I'm kind of enjoying like the iconoclastic leanings of this rising generation, and I definitely think they're onto something. And it certainly like evolved the way I look at the world too. Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you, I see it in my own family, how evolved they are. I have such a mix of folks in my family. I have multi-gendered, non-gendered. I have multicultural. I have like all of these amazing, amazing people of varying sexualities, non-sexual. I mean, I just got all these people, and they're so amazing. And I love the fact that when you have these open spirits, they're finally, you know, you have to work through gender dysphoria, gender function, gender non-function. You start getting finally free of heteronormative, which means you start getting away from toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, and it gives you a more homogeneous human being. In my day, because I'm older, we were driven by sex, drugs, and rock and roll, almost literally. and you know, when we were raising, and I have 2 sons, and when we were raising them, we wanted them to be nice people, you know. Right. And it's very interesting because I've always had people of lots of genders, and you know, I've been involved with, you know, all kinds of people, you know, people that were not allowed to talk about their gender identity because it just wasn't spoken about back in those days, you know, fluidity and being transsexual and, you know, actually having the operations, doing the whole thing, because it wasn't accepted. We weren't allowed to talk about those things. But, you know, I had one child actually say to me, I'm sorry, I'm not gay. I know you wanted a gay son. And I was like, it wasn't about that. You just needed to know that if you were, that you were free to be whatever you were. I'm not mad that you're not. I'm just, my whole point at the time when you were younger was that you never had to be afraid. That's interesting how they internalize that at the same time. Wow.
Yes.
That's intense. That's intense.
Isn't that wild? And I was like, oh my gosh. I felt terrible for giving that impression that you thought I wanted that actively. My only meaning was that you would never have to be afraid of who you were in your own home. So, you know,
so
it's
in trying
so funny.
To create a safe space it seemed like you were creating like an expectation. Wow.
Yeah, and it's something I've apologized for because it was never my intention to create a space where you felt like you were expected to be a certain way. You were just being told that you were welcome to be who you were. And it's just, even through good intentions, I caused harm. And I mean,
no, that's really illuminating. Like how many times, is acceptance conflated or confused with expectation? And then it makes me wonder how much is that rejection possibly a misunderstood warning where like a parent might be like afraid for a child and instead they like pass on that fear and it turns into oppression when it's really meant to be just caution.
Yeah, I don't know. And
yeah, it's interesting.
My kids a million times. And I'm like the biggest person to say, I'm a parent. I don't have the answers. I'm a complete fuck up as a human. So I apologize a lot because I was not a perfect parent and know it and admit it all the time. Even though they're adults now, I still tell them that I fucked up a lot and I hope they forgive me. And I find it to be good to ask your children for their forgiveness too, because the whole I'm the parent, I say so is a bullshit tactic because my parents wound up being Pentecostal preachers. And it's interesting because my mother was a goddess worshiper. My father was Jewish. He converted her to being Pentecostal. And then they started this road, and my father is extraordinarily abusive. And it took me most of my life to figure out my mother was extremely abusive as well, sins of omission and abuse as well. But they lorded their power in such a way that you could not speak, you could not talk about the abuses, you lived in a constant state of fear. And to me, that was almost as debilitating as the beatings. So I wanted to make sure that my kids knew that I had a fucked up childhood so that they would understand that I love them, but I'm honestly flying by the seat of my pants and doing the best I can. And I find that they, it is. And there's, we still have conversations about it, and they have, to me, we respect you because you were always very honest about the things you did wrong. How could you not love somebody for being honest about that? And I was like, thanks, guys. So, yeah, I mean, there's no perfect parenting anywhere in the world that I have ever found. We in some way pass on some kind of trauma, imagined, intended or not, and just let your kids know that you're doing the best you can and you love them and you're going to make mistakes and you're really sorry, but you're trying, and if you're coming from a place of love and wanting to protect them, you're just doing the best you can. And they'll come to respect you. That's where I am with mine. Your heart's in the right place. You can reason with them when they are of a reasonable age.
Sure.
But you have a child.
I do, and I would say that mothering has probably been just the brightest of all the bright spots in my life. I really enjoyed being a mother. I enjoyed being like a pregnant person. My daughter was born at home. I enjoyed having a home birth. Wow. I was really glad that I was able to make that choice. For the first decade or so of her life, I pretty much worked as a freelance writer, music teacher, and a metalsmith, and I was able to stay in control of my own schedule in order to parent her the way I wanted. And now that she is a young adult and taking her steps into the world, I couldn't be more proud. I did not raise her with witchcraft because I remembered growing up how I didn't always enjoy that dogma was imposed onto me. And what was most meaningful to me was like the path I discovered. And that's what I hope for her, is that she will discover her path.
Oh, my gosh. I love that you said that, because that's really how I feel. I think religion so personal, and I got dragged into church so many days a week. And you know, when your parents are pastors, nobody is giving you a fucking option. You have to go to church. You know, and nobody cares what you think about it either, especially if your parents are running the damn thing. You know, because how would it look? It's not about how you feel. Nobody gives a shit. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, my daughter, she's really an amazing person, and she's hugely supportive, where sometimes, like, I'll tease her a little bit, because in my public life, I absolutely need her help and support. And I just remind her, it was kind of like, you know, like the agrarian farming families. We have kids to help us till the fields. So will you help me do this book event, or will you help me set up this tent so I can do Witches Fest? Yeah. And she's always right there and just, like, understands her role, that I don't expect her to practice, that I don't expect her to really, like, take part in it, but that I do rely on her for support. And she's been really great about it. I think she's figured out that I'm not like other moms, but she accepts me, and she's really wonderful that way.
Yeah, mine is the same way, because it's like, I expect you to pick something at some point that you're comfortable with. They've seen what I do in the home, obviously. Mm-hmm. The joke in my house is that the worst thing a child of mine could do to me is to become a Republican and start attending church. You know, so I mean,
I think that's something I probably, like, the Republicanism I probably could not support. So I'm not as open-minded as I purport to be.
Well, there's good reasons for that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that would be very hard. I think that would be very hard for me to accept. I would struggle with that for sure.
And I do struggle with that, because my first husband, who was a witch, wound up being a Trump supporter, and I'm like, ew, I actually had sex with you. Gross. But yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know. Please, I can't even. Anyway, but yes, I do think that, you know, religion is definitely a personal choice, and one that the individual has to make. I do not think it's legitimate to force someone into something. If you want to show them what you believe, if you want to explain it to them, that's one thing. But to make someone feel like they have to do what you're doing is very inappropriate, and I really do not support it. So, yeah, I'm so glad we're aligned on that, because I think that's a healthy way to parent. Oh, my gosh, I wish I had met you sooner. But fortunately, we're talking now, and we'll talk again in the future. I'm so happy about that.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, as far as, so your family is still evolving in the sense of accepting what you do, which is cool. So, you know, cooler heads have obviously prevailed. So what was the first book you wrote?
The first book I wrote was called Witch's Grimoire, and it is a guide to creating a book of shadows. And I was writing for a small imprint called Provenance Press, and they were a New Age publisher that I think they got published by S&W, which was like a magazine publisher. So I had two books come out in the mid-aughts on Provenance Press, and then things were pretty quiet for me for about 10 years, I would say. I didn't really get much into, like, promoting the books or pushing them, because I was still, like, navigating some pretty painful waters on what it meant to be out of the broom closet. I don't even think I was totally comfortable yet. I would still, when I talked about, you know, my writings, I would really talk around them. It was very, very hard for me to be direct. People would say, oh, you're an author. What do you write about? I'm like, well, it's like New Age spirituality and earth-based religions. It was very hard for me to say the words like witchcraft. And at some point that just went away, and now I say that first. I lead with that. Yeah. And people either step forward or step back, and I never know which one it's going to be, but both are delightful.
Absolutely. As we get older, we lose patience for bullshit. You're either going to accept what I say or not.
And I also gain patience for people that are uncomfortable. I'm like, well, you should be uncomfortable because I'm extremely powerful. You should be afraid of me.
Yep.
You should be protesting. I have a opposing worldview, and I'm here to smash the patriarchy. So please, quake in your boots, darling.
Say it, baby. Say it. Preach it. I love it.
I have no problem when people react badly, with like fear and judgment. I'm like, yes, you should be afraid because I'm a tough one. I wouldn't want to face me.
I love it. I love it.
In a disagreement of any kind. So, yeah, you're right to back up.
Oh, yeah. We're up for it. We have no fucks left to give.
No.
I sold my last one a week ago.
The field is barren.
That's what, like I said, I sold my last one a week ago. I no longer care because if I don't lay it all out on the table now, I mean, I'm no longer looking for someone to mate with, someone to grow old with. I'm already there, okay?
There you are.
So now I get to do whatever the fuck I want, say whatever
It's liberating.
I want.
It's liberating.
It is liberating. So I want you to tell the audience what you think about the upcoming election and what you think they should do about the upcoming election.
Oh, well, it's such a disappointing landscape, really. I am alarmed by the calls for Biden to step down. I think that's really really a poor reaction to his age when the other choice is equally as old and far less desirable. People should be clamoring for the convicted felon to step down.
Agree.
I do wish that we had other choices. I do wish that we were not facing this scenario. But, between the two, I'm going to vote for Biden. And I have no problem saying that publicly, even though I do respect people that keep votes private. I think that's everyone's personal choice. I feel like it's probably best to keep those things private, but that's not what I'm going to do. I do believe in direct action. I do believe in speaking up and speaking out. I don't think he's a perfect man. I don't hold illusions, but as far as domestic policy goes, there's no question. Foreign policy, that's a little trickier, but highly complex situations are not going to have simple solutions or simple answers, and I do not pretend to have any of those answers. I just know what is unacceptable to me, and the orange monstrosity is unacceptable to me, so I will be voting for anything but that.
Yep, saying that.
I was chatting with one of my online friends the other day who came up with a hilarious analogy, which was like, I would vote for a bowl of shrimp over voting for Trump. And even if I were allergic to shrimp, I would still vote for the bowl of shrimp. So
my analogy last week was, I don't care if the Democratic convention says we're voting for a bag of dirty gym socks. We will be the party of dirty gym socks.
Trump has got my vote over the Republican slate any day of the week. So
absolutely. But my biggest point is, as a liberal Democrat, whatever they have decided at the convention, whenever that they have the convention and they give us our nominee, we must all speak with one voice, because that is how we are going to win. If we start waffling again and we have another Jill Stein moment like we did in 2016, where folks were like, I don't like Hillary. Really? You like her now?
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with how that went down. That was, that was really triggering, because we have never had a more qualified candidate.
Thank you.
For president. We have never had a more qualified candidate, and for people to abandon like the most qualified candidate because they didn't like her was mind-blowing to me. I frequently travel by air. When I get onto an airplane, I am unconcerned whether or not I like the pilot. I am 100% concerned with their ability to fly a plane. And we had someone who had not only been on the plane, but had been on the crew of the plane for decades, sat in the cockpit of the plane, and someone that had never really been on the plane. And how we got there it was very telling. It was very telling to how deep-seated our misogyny is as a culture. Forget about women. Even if you can forget about women, they were ready to abandon the most qualified candidate over criteria that men are never held to. Men are never held to likability standards. Men get the privilege of existing in their natural state whenever they want, where women are expected to contort themselves constantly. It's exhausting. I'm old enough to remember when her headbands were an issue. You know, it's absurd. It's absurd. The contortionist things that women must engage in order to be accepted in any place of society. And I think that's why I gravitate, towards witchcraft. It's like it's a safe space for women. You don't have to be anything other than who you are.
So true. Truth. All truth, nothing but truth, 100% truth. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, all right, thank you. That I love you. Anyway,
I'm just sad that I don't think we learned from that. I don't think we learned a damn thing as a population. Because here we are.
And I'm about that.
Yeah,
I know. And
created the exact same problem. Only now it's so much worse, and people cannot even acknowledge how much worse this is.
And here's the thing that bothers me even more. The worst thing that will happen if Biden, I want you to realize what I'm saying, the worst thing that will happen if Biden gets reelected is that we might get President Harris. Oh,
so what?
Shame.
Yeah. So what?
That's what I'm saying. Wow, we might get the first black female president. Let me not celebrate. Excuse me?
Well, people are terrified of that. A lot of people are terrified of that.
I love her. What are you talking about? Scandals? What, we have to have a scandal? Are you people kidding? You're not happy unless there is a disaster? I do not understand the process of thought that goes into people supporting Trump. I do not. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens, a town over from this joker. I've been telling people since day one what a clown this guy is. Anyone in New York can tell you what a clown this guy is. It boggles the mind. It beggars belief. I cannot abide. I cannot. He was a curiosity. He was a joke. He's the guy we made fun of when we were kids because he was such a loser.
I really can't believe that he ascended the presidency and now has a legitimate shot. It's really unbelievable. I really can't believe we're here again. It's shocking to me.
And it's worse, like you said earlier. It's worse because he has a paid-for Supreme Court that he bought and paid for. And he didn't even buy it with money. He bought it with promises that he won't keep. And that is just astounds me. He's the greatest snake oil salesman I have ever seen in my entire life. I can't even. I can't even.
I just don't understand how people are behind this. I mean, I understand that, like, the conservatives are salivating and they see him as their, like, great white hope and their chance to secure power. But how do they sleep at night? I mean, wasn't like that, the phone calls to the governor of Georgia enough? Wasn't the documents at Mar-a-Lago enough? Wasn't the felony convictions enough? Like, it just kind of reveals how low they're willing to go. And their platform is one of oppression. It's like,
here's
it's
the
really
thing.
disgusting.
Bill Clinton got busted on a blowjob. Can we just talk about it? They freaked out over a blowjob. Literally. And wanted to impeach Bill Clinton over that and throw him out of office over that. The things Trump has done, if the Democrat had done that, thrown him in jail. They would have tried to do as many bad things to him as they could have. But Trump, everything the Republicans accuse the Democrats of, the Republicans are obviously guilty of. They have proved it. Proved it over and over again. Hillary's emails does not even compare to the stacks of paperwork that Trump stole from the White House. Stole. And just left laying around when he had guests over. There's no comparison.
The hypocrisy is really hard to digest.
It is. It's absolutely impossible to digest. We could have a show. You and I could talk just about that for an hour. Holy.
That's true. That's true.
Oh my gosh! But before we go, I do want to talk about this book, and it is the Book of Crystal Magic. And can I just tell you, thank you for not making this book impossible, because there are so many books out there on this topic that are just like these huge tombs of every single crystal in the world, or at least trying to be, and you can't remember shit from them, page after page, and they're really not user-friendly. This book is so nice. It's so user-friendly. You kept it down to, 55?
Yeah.
Crystals.
It was challenging. I tried to keep it to ones people were likely to encounter, like you said, or other books that are just encyclopedic sources of information, which is great and useful. But there's a lot of books on this subject, and I feel that this one is different because while, it doesn't go into the attributes of every crystal under the sun, it does tell you what to do with them. And I think that's what makes it different, where a lot of other books are like, clean your crystals, clear your crystals, but they don't tell you how, and they don't give you options, and they don't tell you why. And then, worst of all, they don't tell you what to do with them. So that was really kind of like the, the gap in the bookshelf that I was trying to fill. And I really hope that people are receptive to it, because crystals are like a big part of my practice. I graduated from the Gemological Institute of America, and I worked as a professional goldsmith for decades. So, connecting the rocks has been such a big part of not just, my magical practice, but my professional livelihood as well. So it's definitely, coming from a place of knowledge, but it's definitely coming from a place of practicality as well.
Oh my God! And here's. Can I tell you what I love? There's not one crystal in this. There's not one crystal in this book that I hadn't heard of. Not
wonderful.
One. Not one. So there you go, folks. It's not full of stuff you've never heard of or never going to encounter. Have to search other countries for. None of that. all this you've heard of, stuff you've seen, a lot of stuff you probably already have, which makes life so much easier. And a lot of the stuff is stuff we have in our jewelry already.
Absolutely.
Like garnet, citrine, amethyst, highlight, green amethyst. You've got all this stuff already. I'm just saying. It makes
ways to use it, incorporate it.
Yes. And that's what I love about this book. It is not over my head. You know how much I hate shit that's over my head. It's not over my head. If it's not over my head, it's not going to be over your head. It's easy to use. It makes great use of the jewelry you already have. Want to get a couple of stones and use the spells that are in the book? Yes, there are spells, Mama. That's what I'm telling you. Go get this book. It is a great book. It is not cumbersome. It is not over the top. It's enough information. And our lovely Judy Ann tells us how to accomplish our shit with this book. So I'm telling you, the Modern Witchcraft Book of Crystal Magic, your complete guide to the power of crystals. And not just out there crystals that you're never going to encounter. This is the stuff we already have at home. This is good, okay? I'm telling you.
Oh, thank you so much.
What a wonderful book. And you are friggin' delightful. I meant to ask you, because I am aware that you're a metalsmith. Do you?
I absolutely do. Mostly I've been focusing on, I've been doing like a nice run of pendulums lately. That's definitely been very inspiring to me. Mostly like one of a kind magical items is where I've been focusing. Yeah.
Where do we see
one
that?
of the things I'm well known for, I did some sterling silver acclimates that I call witch blades, and those I like to show off every now and then.
Where do you post your stuff, girl?
That's a good question. I'm a little bit behind on the socials. I am on Instagram. My Instagram handle is TransSister, and I'll sometimes post things there. But I will say I recently archived a lot of my stuff just because I wasn't sure what I wanted it to be. It was starting to look kind of like a scrapbook, and I try to do things with intention, and I haven't quite figured out my social media. But probably Instagram is the best way to keep in touch because that's where a lot of my creativity tends to pop up. I'm playing in a couple of bands. I'll post about them in there sometimes, too. I have Saint Divine. We're working on a new album. And then I have Psych-O-Positive. We're also working on a new album. So there's more than just books and magic. There's metal, there's music, there's something for everybody. Or for nobody if I'm not your cup of tea. I don't know that I'm everyone's cup of tea, and I'm fine with that. So.
Me too. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
We're here for us, baby. That's what counts.
Facts.
Oh, my God. Judy Ann Nock, will you come back on and hang out with me again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was so fun.
Oh, my God. This is great. I just think you're amazing. And there's so much more to talk about. We barely scratched the surface. Oh, my God.
Well, we got to talk about the first book and the last book.
I know, and we have like everything.
So yeah, we'll have to.
I know we have like so much life in the middle that we have to talk about. All the other books. Definitely want to talk about your music. Definitely need to talk about your metalwork. There's like so many other things. All right, we will set up another date. Definitely.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Are you writing another book too?
I'm not working on another book at the moment, so it's a little scary.
Okay.
This is about the first time since like 2017 that I haven't been working on a manuscript. So I'm focusing on music, and that's bringing me an abundance of joy.
Yeah, joy is important, baby. We need some extra joy right now. We're in a really scary position as a country and as a people, so the music is probably needs to take precedence right now. So it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
It'll be something.
It'll be something, but we'll be all right because we're going to hang together. Okay? You take care. Thank you again so much
All
for
right.
spending
Thank
some
you
time
so
with
much
me.
for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, girl. Talk to you soon.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye. All right, guys. That's it today. I will be on tomorrow with Deborah Burris, and we are going to talk about weather magic. I'm so psyched. Have a great night. She's a love.